Hi everyone, David Aragona and Mike Beer here taking a look at the feature race on Saturday at Aqueduct. Race 6 is the Woodhaven Stakes. Turf season is finally beginning in New York. A bit of a late start this season as they are planning to get extensive use out of that turf course at Aqueduct this year, heading all the way into the spring and early summer. So they delayed the start of turf season, but we are supposed to be on the turf on Saturday. Mike, there's a little rain in the forecast, so we'll see if this race stays on the turf. There are no MTOs entered, just 7 entered for the grass.
Yeah, you hope it stays on here. We got a couple of one stakes race on Saturday, one on Sunday. You'd like to see these two races at least stay on the grass.
Before we get to the handicapping, the Derby is right around the corner, so you do want to make your handicapping plan for Derby weekend. Check out our Kentucky Derby packages. When you buy your Oaks and Derby PPs, you can also get betting strategies, the player's guide, clocker reports, and you can save up to 39% by bundling all those things together. So check out those Oaks and Derby packages at shop.drf.com. Let's throw up the field of 7 runners for this Woodhaven Stakes. And Mike, I had an awfully tough time making a morning line for this race. You can tell how closely grouped I've got all of these runners. Tough to establish a favorite. They've all got some questions to answer, and the form is pretty muddled.
Yeah, and listen, I don't envy you that job any day of the week, but I certainly wouldn't envy you to having to make a line for this race. This is the way that you made the line, David, is, in my opinion, exactly how the race handicaps. There's no standout in here. All these horses really have a lot to prove. I guess trips will be really important in here.
And arguably the horse with the most to prove is down towards the inside, the number 1 Septarian, who's never been on the turf, but goes out for some pretty strong connections. Flavien Prat and Chad Brown, that we do know, pull in quite a bit of money in New York. Let's go to the Timeform US Pace Protector to check out how these horses could sort themselves out in the early stages. And again, Mike, a little tough to read here. I suppose Septarian could go forward from the inside. He did show early speed early on in his career sprinting. More recently, they've not ridden him so aggressively, so I wouldn't anticipate they're going to be looking for the front end with that horse. Dream On has plenty of natural speed, and I think the number 7 sounds like a plan drawing outside. Kendrick Carmouche is probably going to look to get that horse out and get over from that post position.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the pace isn't that easy to decipher, but the longer I looked at it, the more I just felt like the 7 seemed like the most likely pace setter in here. If nothing else, as far as Septarian goes, this is a great post for him. If he gets out of the gate well, he can just sort of run toward that first turn there and maybe land in a really good spot.
Well, let's go through this field from the rail out, beginning with that wild card drawn down on the inside, the number 1 Septarian. This is a horse that showed some ability in the first couple starts of his career, albeit at Charlestown and Laurel, was privately purchased after that, switched into the Chad Brown barn. They got some Derby fever with this horse, Mike. They tried the Mucho Macho Man, which in retrospect was not the strongest race overall, but he actually ran a little better next time in the Risen Star against a way tougher field, earning an 82 buyer, tying his previous top that he had achieved at Laurel, going shorter. So seems like distance is okay for this horse. Now they're switching to the turf, and you might look at the sire Pertonico and be skeptical of why they're going to turf with this horse, but then you dig into the female family, and there are plenty of grass influences.
Yeah, there's a lot of turf on the bottom of this pedigree, so it won't be that surprising when Septarian handles the surface, which here as far as the connections go, I guess, I mean, I would say that that's the best and the worst part about this horse, because listen, Chad Brown, we've seen him do this plenty of times in the past year where he switches horses over to turf. And even if they don't look like they have that much pedigree, he knows, and they handle the surface really well and get the job done. The flip side of that is these horses just get bet, and you never really get top value for them. You know, more than anything else, David, the longer I looked at him, along with the pedigree, I just felt like maybe he switches over to the turf here and lands in a really good spot to try the surface.
Yeah, and I actually looked up some stats in DRF Formulator for Chad Brown in this situation. First-time turf with non-maidens, so horses that have already broken their maidens and are trying the turf for the first time later in their careers. He's 8 for 33, 24%, with a pretty impressive $2.72 ROI. So we'll see if Septarian can bolster that statistic. The number 2 is End of Romance, a horse who just made his U.S. debut in late March at Turfway Park in the Rushaway Stakes, and ran okay, Mike. I mean, he was bet down to be one of the shorter prices of that race, going off at 5-2, first time in the Grab Motion barn. Didn't have a whole lot of early speed. Made a move into contention, kind of flattened out a little bit towards the end. But going back to watch some of this horse's races in Great Britain last year, he showed ability over there, albeit against some suspect competition, though you will note the horse that he defeated in his final start in England, Heart of Honor, did achieve some success in Dubai this winter, actually just missed in the UAE Derby. So that at least is a strong form line. And Like, I don't know if you looked up this horse's pedigree or not, but he's got a pretty noteworthy half sibling.
Yeah, this was to me that this horse is the toughest call in the race to me because I wanted to like him. I feel like more than I actually wound up liking him. As far as his form overseas goes, I mean, his debut, the turf race, the 6 furlong race, I thought he looked really good in that race winning. He did take advantage a little bit because the runner up there had tons of trouble, totally blew the start, and then made probably a too early move in there. But this horse did finish well. His other 2 races didn't do a lot for me over there. His rush away was fine. To me, I just wait and see what kind of price he is and then decide if I want to use him here because I'm not sure that he's that good, actually.
Yeah, and I was referencing the pedigree. He's a half-brother to Romantic Warrior, the $27 million earner and multiple globe-trotting Grade 1 winner. So we'll see if End of Romance can start to live up to that potential that is suggested at his pedigree. The number 3 is Dream On. And Mike, this is one of the toughest calls in the race after Septarian because this horse showed a lot of talent during his 2-year-old season, was 3rd in the Summer Stakes, which came up very fast on the Beyer scale. That's where he earned his top 90 Beyer. Came back and didn't run so badly in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf, carved out legitimate fractions, just faded to 5th. I thought that his race off the layoff at Gulfstream was workmanlike. I wanted to see him beat that field a bit more convincingly. And then what happened last time at Tampa Bay Downs?
Yeah, he didn't run well last time. I don't know. They didn't really make an effort to go to the lead with him last time. I don't think that's supposed to be a huge excuse for him in that spot. I guess ultimately, David, he was just in too tough. Those horses were just too good for him, and he ran really poorly. I'll be honest. I understand that he makes sense on paper, and he did run some good races, I guess, as a 2-year-old last year. I personally didn't really like any of his starts as a 2-year-old. I just think this horse is okay. The longer I looked at this race, the less I wanted to bet him.
And it's going to come up again a little bit later with another horse, Mike, but I think that Beyer speed figure and all the speed figures assigned to the Summer Stakes aren't really being duplicated. So I want to take that one with a grain of salt. Otherwise, he's a high 70s Beyer's horse at his best. The number 4 is Revolutionire, another horse who started his career over in Europe, made his first start in the U.S. last time out in that same race that Dream On was exiting, the Columbia Stakes. And he did a bit more running that day, although it was late running. He was reserved at the back of the pack early, picked up some pieces to ultimately get up for 3rd in a photo finish at the end. That was his first start for the Christophe Clement stable. This horse is going to have to step forward, Mike, but I guess the best thing you can say about him is he was pretty progressive during his 2-year-old season.
Yeah, it did seem like he was getting better as time went on last year. Ran in a couple of maybe tougher races, the last 2 starts over there where he just came up short. I mean, he ran fine in those races. I don't know if you had anything, any take on it, David. I thought he got really good trips, had a chance to win both of them, wasn't good enough either time. But those races are fine. I guess the best thing I can say about his Columbia last time, again, it was a tougher field than this one, a much tougher field as far as the 1-2 finishes are concerned. And the horse that he did sort of duel down there for 3rd early adopter came back and he won at Keeneland the other day there in a pretty good looking performance.
Yeah, I think what I noted watching his races as a 2-year-old was they really changed up his running style over the course of that campaign. He showed speed early on, and then they started holding him up at the back of the pack. And I don't know if I want a horse trying to close from last in this race, and it feels like he's going to be. The number 5 is Cairo Caper. He is the other horse I was referencing earlier who was competing in the Grade 1 Summer Stakes up at Woodbine last year. That was his most recent turf start, and he was 5th in there, Mike. It was probably a slightly tougher field than this one, but again, the Beyer suggests that was his career best performance. I don't know if I really agree with that. I thought he ran better 3 back in the Soaring Free Stakes, where he defeated today's rival Dream On, though that was over 6.5 furlongs, and I still have some questions about how far this horse wants to go.
Yeah, I agree. I like his 2 sprints better than I like the race where they stretched him out in the summer. And I get it was a Grade 1, and if nothing else, the speed figure aside for that race, the 1-2 finishes of that race, they're both pretty good. They were both pretty good 2-year-olds. So I don't want to hold the summer against him too much, but he didn't run that well in that race. And I'm with you. I wonder if he, how far this horse really wants to go.
The number 6, Tiz Dashing, had plenty of success early in his career. Last season, competing over this Aqueduct turf course, he won his debut going 6 furlongs in a gritty fashion. Then he came right back, stretched out in the Awad, and ran pretty well behind Valuation Metric, a well-met Chad Brown runner in that spot. Mike, I like both of those Aqueduct races more than his 2 subsequent Gulfstream Park efforts, and I think we'll take a look at the replay of his last race where he finished 3rd behind a couple of runners who came back in the Transylvania Stakes and didn't exactly flatter the form, but he did meet a much tougher field 2 back in that Kitten's Joy, where it feels like the three top finishers in that race all have real talent, including the Transylvania winner, Test Score, who was third in that spot. But it's not like Tiz Dashing was quite as good as those horses.
Yeah, he just wasn't good enough in the Kitten's Joy. He's, I guess the same thing could be said about this performance here, David. He's narrowly beaten, but he has no real excuse there. He's just not quite as good as the 1-2 finishers, even though he was between horses late. I didn't give him a big excuse there. Like you, I liked his 2 starts here last year as a 2-year-old. I thought he had a lot of potential. We'll see if he starts to deliver on it now.
The number 7 Sounds Like a Plan is coming back off a layoff. He most recently competed in the Central Park over this Aqueduct turf course to conclude his 2-year-old season. We'll take a look at the stretch run of that race, Mike. And I thought this horse ran pretty well within the context of the race because they tried out different tactics than they used when he broke his maiden. They rated him behind a speed horse this day. He took a bit of a bump at the quarter pole when it looked like Kendrick Carmouche was trying to angle out. He was kept inside at that point and ultimately had to rally inside of a tiring front runner. And this was a race that was kind of dominated by horses that were just closing down the center of the course as it started to fall apart at the end. So I want to give him a little bit of extra credit for sticking down towards the inside in this race. He was visually impressive when he broke his maiden, albeit against New York breds, but that was a reasonably fast race. And with routine improvement from 2 to 3, he fits with this field.
Yeah, that makes sense, especially if he makes the lead again. When he broke his maiden, I'm with you. He looked good breaking his maiden. I mean, he got loose on the lead, but it's not like he was walking in there. I thought he went, solid fractions. It was a pretty convincing win. I thought he ran fine in the Central Park. To me, you're right that it was more of a closer's race at the end there. I guess I would just say my main takeaway there was he just seemed like he wasn't, quite good enough as the 1-2, as good as the 1-2-3 finishers. But maybe trips did make a difference there. Off the layoff here, bringing fresh speed against the sort of a suspect field, I guess you could say, behind him. He makes plenty of sense.
Let's go to our picks for this Woodhaven Stakes. Again, fingers crossed this one stays on the turf. I'm not sure exactly who would stay out other than Septarian if this one came off the turf. But like, even on the grass, you're going to go with that Chad Brown runner switching surfaces.
Yeah, I really struggled with this race, David. There's not anybody that I'm dying to bet in this race. I'll take Septarian, hope that he handles the turf here. He's got plenty of pedigree to do with the 2 Europeans, the 2 and the 4. I couldn't talk myself into him.
Yep, I've got your top 2 picks in there in 2nd and 3rd. I just thought Sounds Like a Plan could probably make the lead in here, showed potential as a 2-year-old, and maybe with that routine improvement through maturity, he could beat this field. So 7-2-1-6 for me and 1-2-4-5 for Mike as we get on the turf in New York in the Woodhaven Stakes on Saturday at Aqueduct. Good luck if you're playing the races this weekend.